So I'm going to start by reading the Broadside text. My collaborator, Paul Breidenbach, gave me a really obscure Pasolini film as my film, and it's called Notes for a Film on India. And I don't think anybody but, die-hard Pasolini fans and film scholars would really have heard of this, let alone seen it. But I managed to find a subtitled version of it on the web, English subtitle, and it did play once on Italian TV before falling into obscurity. So I think in a way it fits really well into the vanquished terrain theme. Trimmed with tiger, tank after tank rolls down the runway, pauses, turret rotating to the right. Everyone gets an eyeful. This wouldn't look good on just anybody, but wow, these vehicles really know how to work it. They roll into the forest. In 1967, Pier Paolo Pasolini goes to India to make a movie about whether he will make a movie. The movie to be is based on a legend. A Maharaja encounters a starving tiger and her cubs. She is on the verge of eating them. Overcome with compassion, the Maharaja feeds his body to the tiger. Movie camera is macchina da presa in Italian, a machine to capture. Pasolini calls it the occhio bocca, the eye mouth. The legend derives from the Jatakamala, garland of previous births, 34 Sanskrit tales taken from a compendium of 547 stories called Jatakas about the Buddha's past lives. Written in rough-hewn Pali, Jatakas are amongst the oldest examples of Buddhist literature. The Hungry Tigress tale, featuring Bodhisattva Prince Mahasattva, great being, while not an actual Jataka, is the first story in the Jatakamala. Prince sacrifices self to obtain unexcelled engagement in all-pervasive realization. Tiger extinction in the wild is projected to occur by 2022. Pasolini's camera loves the rural villagers, the children especially. He tries to keep the camera from devouring them as it moves from face to face. I imagine a series of photographs in which the intended subject moves out of the frame just as the photograph is taken. What was originally mere background becomes subject, but the actual subject is absence. British explorer, naturalist, big game hunter, Sir Samuel Baker notes a curious and inexplicable fact. Certain animals and birds exhibit a peculiar shyness of humans. Mahasattva is everywhere. Travel and self-help books, jewelry. This Mahasattva bracelet will multiply even the smallest amount of compassion existing in a human soul, and is to be used only by those who are willing to the intense virtue it will bestow. Pasolini asked a young temple laborer, would he sacrifice his body to feed a starving tiger? Oh yes. He asked a handsome Sikh slated to play the Maharaja. Definitely. It's clear to everyone behind the camera that the second movie will never be made. The Garland book is a forest transformed, esteemed for its elegance. Its many princely bodhisattvas exemplify the virtuous ruler theme. The book preserves and presses words together, remembers in language ornate and flowery. Pope drinks, calls space. This bracelet works as a great love item, and for those in abusive relationships, $50. Reimagining capitalism. Pasolini asks the modern-day Maharaja, would a Maharaja feed himself to a starving tiger? No, a Maharaja would take the tiger home and feed it. There are other worlds they have not told you of. Pasolini finishes. A first worlder who goes to the third world has everything, but gives nothing. The third world has nothing, but gives everything. So, I'm also going to read a bird poem. It's based on Audubon's paintings for his Birds of America. It's called Magnificent Frigate Bird. Scraping back watercolor, increasing color saturation, graphite but pastel or watercolor. Pastel? Graphite underdrawn and overpainted watercolor. Pastel? Oil backgrounds? Watercolor washes, dried watercolor delicacies. Graphite reticulation, tick-ululation, tick, 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 forget. That graphite reticulation again, that graphite defining bird. Shape direction. The surface sheen, metallic. Seen surface, sheen, soft gray American shading. Catching. Light watercolor pastel graphite. Dry cake watercolor. Moist colors in pans. Flat color, water in the sky. Bubbles crushed under the great wild. Foxing, pinhole center left margin edge, pioneering backwards glancing weight. Birds cut out and left unnoticed. Treatment that results in tears, creases, and holes, tears, creases, and holes, tears, creases, and holes, tears, creases, and holes. This is meant to be seen. Innumerable small, we now see. Not heard, graphite abraded pastel. Audubon shot and drew the birds first, gouache, chalk, shot, ink, overglazing, and drew pastel, blue over black, collage, pastel, graphite, and watercolor. The upper bird, a vertical flower stem, inside dark, opaque graphite bird lines, around the eyes and claws. The magnificent frigate bird, plundering, graphite catching, the metallic sheen of great hundreds of lines. A dark effect, weight, splat of the line, leaning down, and with light bouncing out of the pitch. So for my last piece, I'm going to read an adaptation of a Wintu coyote tale, and it was inspired by the location prompt that Paul gave me, which was Panther Meadows, which is located on Mount Shasta, and is a very sacred site for the Wintu. And this was originally told by Carrie Dixon in Wintu, and it was translated by Alice Shepard. And what Alice Shepard did was, first she did a literal translation that was syntactically really jumbled up, and then she used that as the basis for her real translation, her actual translation. But in constructing this, I just worked from the literal translation. Acorn Woman and Coyote stared at each other and started circling while grasshoppers clattered above. At first, Coyote could see no Acorn Woman, only endless grasshoppers with legs and heads begging to be eaten. Coyote followed Acorn Woman to the west. Coyote hated to be barked at while he was eating deer fat. Coyote ran back to the smokehouse and said to Acorn Woman, "Where's your no-good husband?" Coyote understood he needed to do some quick talking. Either that or the grasshoppers had swarmed over the sun. Gray Squirrel and Coyote stood across from each other. Gray Squirrel blew into himself until he was hollow. Gray Squirrel jumped high into a tree out of the reach of Coyote. Gray Squirrel said, "Don't bother me, I'm eating." He saw the deer that Coyote had been curing. He smelled the deer's potential, the good fat. He stored all his acorns there. He whispered to Acorn Woman, "Go get our touring children. I relinquish them to you. I'm in a tree somewhere. I'm starving. See how skinny I am?" "Just follow Acorn Woman," Coyote said and pointed to the west. "Look," Coyote said, "I'm also trying to find plump, well-fed children." Night was beginning to fall, so she went to the west where the acorns covered the earth. The grasshoppers filled all possible space and ate until everything was jagged and torn. The grasshoppers quickly dug a hole under Acorn Woman's feet, and she fell in and became food to be stored for later. The grasshoppers saw Acorn Woman with Coyote right behind, and they swarmed in. The land, meanwhile, was acorn thick. Then Coyote fell into the hole meant for Acorn Woman. Then they stopped circling and trying to stare each other down. There were so many grasshoppers that the air became grasshopper air and the ground grasshopper ground. These things happened, and they're all here happening right now. They are nearby. They are somewhere in the west. They had doors in those days, and Gray Squirrel opened up the deer door without knocking. They were still circling each other when Acorn Woman said to Coyote, "If we don't kill each other or get eaten by grasshoppers, let's get married." This sounded good to Coyote. Thank you.